Hi there, Chase Mihailoving about how to set up webinar campaigns with reminders. So we're going to use the custom date field in a campaign configuration. So let's hop into that. So let's pretend that we have a webinar coming up. So let's hop into campaigns, and I'm just going to make a little folder here real quick, and we'll call it webinar. And then I'm going to add a campaign. We're going to call this my webinar. Put it in that folder there. Okay, cool. So now in our campaign configuration, we of course want to check all of our settings and make sure that works and fill out our from name. And so this would be like Chase's Marketing or Dr. Bob or whatever it might be, and my email here. And then here we have this event start date. Now this is what we want to set to our webinar day and time. So let's pretend that our webinar is coming up next Friday, November 6th at 1 p.m. Okay? So I set that as my webinar time and date. I hit save. And now what that enables me to do is two things. One, I'm going to use this campaign as my confirmation, my registration confirmation. So I'm going to add an email here that says something like, thanks for registering. And I would do, hi, first name, thanks for registering for our webinar. And then, I'd put the date and time, November 6th at 1 p.m. You will receive a few reminders leading up to the event. And then I would probably put like when it's time, please join via this link. And then you put your Zoom link there, right? Okay, so then I'm going to save that. Now this, we want to go out immediately. So we're going to change this to immediately because immediately ignores campaign windows. We want it to happen as soon as somebody registers. After that, we can then do our reminders. So let's say we want to send an email, our awesome webinar is tomorrow. Hi, name. Don't forget. Blah, 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 blah. Our webinar is tomorrow. Here's the link, etc. Save. So now, because we have an event start date in the campaign configuration, we can then go use our before timing, and we could say, okay, this one's going to go out one day before. So on November 5th at 1 p.m., this one would send out. And then let's say we want to send a text message an hour before. So we could say, hi, don't, or whatever, looking forward to seeing you on the webinar in 1 hour. Please use this link when it's time. And then you put your link, right? Okay, save. And now again, we can use our before timing to be 1 hour before. And then you'd probably want an SMS or an email that says something like webinar is starting now. And then again, you'd put your message here, please join, etc. Save, and you do that one like before 5 minutes, right? Maybe a text, maybe a voicemail drop somewhere in there, whatever you'd like. And now what you can also do, what I'm not going to do here, we're not going to take it any further than this, but you could then, knowing that this is happening 5 minutes before your event, let's say the next day or an hour later or something, you wanted to like send the replay out. So then you could do an email that says something like webinar replay. Hi, so-and-so, da-da-da-da. If you couldn't make it, here's the replay. You'd put the link, save, and you'd set this to go out after 1 day, because after timing is always relative to the thing above it. So we know that this happened 5 minutes before the webinar. It'll wait 1 day, and so at 12:55 p.m. on the 7th, it would send this out. So that gives you a day to get the replay, get the link to the replay, and put it back in here, and then this will automatically go out to everybody the day after. Okay, cool. So we have our campaign all set up. We always need to remember to publish it. Okay, and now we have a couple of other pieces. So let's make our registration form. So we're going to go to Form Builder. And I'm just going to create a new form. And I'm going to go Options and name it Webinar Sign Up. Okay, and instead of redirecting them somewhere, I'm just going to say thanks for registering. And you can put whatever you want there, obviously. Fields, we're just going to do first name, last name, email, button. Okay, and again, we can always click on things and style them up. I love to make my buttons full width. I think that looks super cool. And now we've got our registration form. How quick was that, right? All right, so the next thing that I would do is I would make a funnel page. So this is obviously really simple. If you haven't seen this before, we would just make a funnel, call it webinar. Okay. Webinar register. Oops. I have like a hot key there. Okay, edit. Let's go with a full width section. I would make a header here, but I'm not going to get into all that. So I'm just going to go one column, and I'm going to do a headline. Register for our webinar. On November 6th. Subheading, enter your details below to register. And then form. Which form? The webinar form that we just created. There we go. Let's give that a little room to breathe here. This one too. Cool, that looks pretty good. And you can even do cool stuff like countdown timer, right? So then here I can come over here and I can say this ends at 1 p.m. When is the start date and time of our webinar, right? Let's give that a little room to breathe. And you can do all sorts of cool stuff with that. Like we could make, I'm not going to get into messing with all the colors and all that kind of stuff, but pretty cool, right? You get the point. So let's do save. Okay, great. And let's come back out here. Now, let's see, do I have a domain set up in here in this account? I don't. So why don't we do that real quick, so this is a thorough demo today. So I'm going to hop into, let's go GoDaddy. I should have something in here. High level test, perfect. So we'll come down here to high level test, hop into the DNS, and now we're going to go to settings, domains. I'm going to click add, and here I want to put my webinars on a subdomain called like webinars.highleveltest.com. Okay, and to set up subdomains, we point CNAMEs. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to come over here. We're going to add a CNAME for webinars. points there. We're going to do our sneaky little flash funnels to make it go faster. Turn that down to half an hour. Hit save. Now we're going to come back here and we're going to hit add, and can't see it yet, hasn't propagated yet, hasn't propagated yet. So I'm just going to keep doing this for a couple of minutes. You don't have to sit here and watch me. I'll just cut to when it's ready. Boom. Actually didn't even have to cut. All right, so now that it can see the CNAME, we're going to connect that to our webinar funnel. We're going to hit link. Great. Let's head back to our funnel real quick. Awesome. And now let's just update this path. So we're going to call this, I think we named our webinar Awesome Webinar, right? So whatever the name of our particular webinar would be, I would put that there. Great. And now when I open this up, it should take a second as it builds the SSL certificate, and then it will load the page. So let's give it a second. Boom, there we go. All right, so now there is our sign up page on our domain, if you can see that there. Great, now we have one last piece. We need a trigger so that when somebody fills out this form, they get added to the campaign that sends them their confirmation and then starts sending them their reminders, right? So let's go down to triggers. I'm going to make a folder called webinar, just to keep everything clean. And we're going to have new awesome webinar registration. Put it in my folder. Okay, great. So now we're going to say when somebody fills out a form, we're going to add a filter to define which form. Our webinar form is the one that we're talking about. We want to add them to a campaign. Which campaign? We want to add them to our webinar campaign. Hit save, activate. And maybe you wanted to like add a tag, right? It's always a good idea to tag people. So I might say, okay, also want to tag them that they registered for the awesome webinar registrant. Cool, hit save. Now we're good to go. All right, so now we could send people to our landing page here. They could fill it out. Boom, thanks for registering. Again, remember we could program that to be whatever we want. So now if we go to marketing campaigns, we should see that our trigger has fired and we have one person in our webinar campaign. If we click in, it's going to show me who that is. So that's me. I was added via a trigger. I've received 1 out of the 5 things in that campaign, right? Because the first one was my confirmation that should have gone out immediately. If I ever needed to troubleshoot, like what trigger added me to that? Oh, something's wrong. I could just click trigger and it'll take me straight to that trigger that we just built so that I could do my troubleshooting. All right, so if I pop over to my email, boom, thanks for registering. Hey Chase, thanks for registering for our webinar. Da, 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 da. Great, that all looks good. And now I could come over here to contact smart list. Now I only have one person in this account, but I could build a smart list to filter by a tag that is awesome webinar registrant, and I could save that as a smart list. So people registered, or maybe I should just make it simpler. Awesome webinar registrants. And now I could always refer back to the people who registered to this webinar via the smart list here. I could select them all and action off that if I needed to in the future. But so that's it. So now I'm again in this campaign. And if we click into the campaign, I'm here, right? I'm stuck at this point and I'm waiting until 1 day before the event and it's going to send me that email. And then 1 hour before, it's going to send me this text, 5 minutes before this email. And then the next day, it's going to send me the follow-up with the replay. So that is how we use the event start date. Webinars are a perfect example of how to use that field and why you would want to use that field. So it's as easy as that. Have fun building your webinar campaigns.